Hello everyone, I'm Darcy Bono, and welcome to one of my insanely rare non-painting related videos. In this video, I wanted to shine a spotlight on something that hasn't really been touched on very much in other Kill Team videos, and that actually is my favorite part of the new edition, which is co-op mode. Or solo mode, depending on who you can find to play with. Now, my current setup isn't ideal for talking head videos, and it's just easier for me to record voiceover, and also I'm very proud of my Kill Team miniatures, more proud of them than I am my own face, so I'm just going to fill the visual void with pictures of them until we get to the rules part and the actual fighter stats part of Kill Team Co-op. So, our story begins with me being invited to a special event hosted by Games Workshop at the Nova Open, and dressed in the most tasteful and legal Night Lord's attire I could find, I accepted their invitation. So, for the day, several other content creators and myself were privy to a presentation and hands-on demonstration of the new edition. Now, I'm primarily a painter more than I am a gamer. I do enjoy the games, but due to my schedule and constantly changing environment, my husband's career has us moving every few years, so I don't always have a community in which I can play Kill Team. So I was a little nervous just due to my lack of gaming experience, but it turns out that there were actually quite a few casual gamers there. And some of you might be wondering, well, why are they inviting people who aren't very experienced in the game? That's not very helpful for feedback. Let me emphasize, this was not a playtesting event. We got to play the game, we got to test it out ahead of time, but we weren't there to tell them how it should be made. This was 100% an informative event, you could say a marketing event, as they're giving us information to then talk about, thus driving up the hype of the topic, in this case, Kill Team. So that being said though, it was refreshingly not a, hey, look how cool this is. Isn't this cool? This is cool, right? Tell everyone it's cool. It was not that. As someone with a corporate background who left a corporate job because I loathe that pep rally nonsense you frequently have to sit through in a corporate job, it was not that kind of presentation. It was a, here's the differences in the old Kill Team and the new Kill Team. This is the future of Kill Team. These are the things we're going to be doing. Here's why. And here's the game. That's what it was. If you want an incredibly concise, descriptive summary on that presentation, absolutely check out Can You Roll a Crits video. It's in the video description. It is a perfect synopsis on the overall information that was presented during the Games Workshop event. You might be wondering, well, why aren't you telling me about it? And he's already done it. It's there. Go check it out. I want to discuss the new co-op mode because it is what pertains most importantly to me, and I feel like other more casual gamers as well. So basically what the co-op mode is essentially the exact same rules as the full-scale game. It's not like Kill Team Light. It is 100% the full Kill Team game and mechanics, but it's just a shared experience rather than a competitive experience. You pick a kill team, and one person controls half and your partner controls the other half. You can also play as half of two different kill teams. So, for example, my husband is going to be running the Deathcore Creed Guardsmen. I'm probably going to be running my Executioner Intercessors because they're one of the only Imperium forces I have because I'm cool like that. And then obviously for solo mode, you pick one entire kill team for yourself. Though I guess if you wanted to learn two at the same time, you could always split it. So then you and your partner face off against enemy NPCs, or since we're Games Workshop and have to call things differently even though words already exist for them, NPOs or non-player operatives. And before moving forward, if you want to learn how to play Kill Team, if you're completely new to it, Andy over at Tactical Skew, check out his channel because he has a perfect, just very cut and dry, to the point, step-by-step method of how to play Kill Team. So back to the enemy NPCs or mobs or NPOs, back to the enemies. The entire mode hinges on these. And all they are basically just two different types of enemies. You have your melee, which is your brawler, and then you have your ranged enemy, which is your marksman. And each of those types has 3 different tiers of difficulties. So you essentially have 6 different types of enemies to fight at this point. The cool thing is, and I'm going to touch a little bit more on, as a painter, why I'm excited for this. The really cool thing is these can be any infantry model you want. And the core rulebook does have a handy guide as far as which miniatures best represent which fighter type. So for example, you've got your orc boy as your standard kind of mid-tier melee unit. The standard little crazy chaff horde units are going to be your trooper types. It's basically the world is your oyster as far as what kind of enemies you want to fight. And I feel like from a narrative perspective, this is great because you can set up whatever scenarios you want based around the armies you either like to paint or the enemies you think would be most appropriate. It just offers a lot of diversity and flexibility as far as scenarios go. And what I mean by that is the core rulebook only has 3 scenarios in it. That doesn't seem like very much. However, you can get a little bit of diversity in each of those scenarios by altering the enemies in it because the enemy count is based off of total wounds. So it's not place 2 heavies, 3, brawlers, whatever. It's not that strict. All it is place enemies up to 90 wounds total on the battlefield. So those can be marksmen, they can be all brawlers. There's no specific set list for what you should be fighting. So if you want to attempt to burn objectives while surrounded by ravening hordes, that's totally fine. If you'd rather try and eliminate a more elite team with a lower body count, but you could very well die in the process, that's totally fine. It's whatever you want to fight. So each of these enemy types has their own set of pre-programmed behavior. And here is an example of it. Look it over, take a screenshot. It is essentially just a list of if-then statements on how these enemies behave and will interact with your operatives. So, for example, if an enemy orc boy is able to either fight or charge, then it's given the engage order, and it does so. If it's not able to do that, it's given the conceal order, and then either repositions, aka moves, or dashes. So when it comes to, like, where does he move, where does he dash, who does he target, the rule of thumb is just do whatever is worst for your kill team. Essentially, you are playing as both your kill team trying to achieve your mission, but also as the enemy team trying to stop your kill team. And they would behave in a way that is worse for your kill team. You could technically also, I think would be fun to play to character. For example, if it was an objective-based game, the burn your objective scenario, I think an orc boy or a world eater's berserker would probably just charge you and not sit on the objective, keeping it safe. But that's just me. I like playing to character. But ultimately, for a more balanced and challenging game, make the enemy operatives behave in a way that will hinder your kill team the most. And they provide plenty of examples of this in the threat principle section. So, for example, if there are multiple NPOs that are ready, if they can perform a fight or a shoot action, activate the one that is going to do the most damage first. So that is an overview of what makes the game tick. It's you and a friend facing off against whatever enemies you want that you physically control, but whose mechanics are designed to stop your kill team from achieving their goal. So that's what Kill Team Co-op mode is in a nutshell, but the whole reason for this video was to explain why I think this is of value to the Warhammer community. So let me start by prefacing this. I don't believe this mode is intended for experienced players. They can find it enjoyable, sure, but I feel like newer players are going to benefit the most from this game mode. As I said before, I don't have a ton of experience with Kill Team. I enjoy skirmish games such as Warcry and Silver Bayonet, but I am by no means an expert in Kill Team. However, I still found this system incredibly enjoyable, and here's why. I didn't feel like I was holding my partner back by fumbling through my rules and mechanics and just being generally uncertain. Whenever you're introducing someone to a new game, whenever there's one person trying to explain a game to another, the person doing the explaining always has to kind of water down their approach to the game. In a competitive setting, in a competitive game where one person's trying to win, that can be very boring for everyone involved because the person who doesn't know very much now feels like, oh, well, they're just taking it easy on me. People know when they're having a learning game, it's just not going to be as fun. In this case, co-op mode negates that. The person with more experience that is introducing the new player to the game can still play the game to its fullest, to their fullest ability. They essentially will carry the team, but the newer person can still learn from their tactics while also learning the overall mechanics of the game itself as well as their actual kill team. In all honesty, it reminded me a lot of playing video games with my older brother. When I was little, we were really big into the Super Nintendo beat 'em up style games like Battletoads. It reminded me a lot of that, where he was, doing most of the work, but I could still enjoy myself and assist him and have fun with my brother. And this especially applies to solo mode as well, especially for new gamers or gamers that have social anxiety, because now you can practice with your own kill team at home, get your rules down, get the mechanics down, so you feel more comfortable and confident when you go into a game store and start playing with strangers. I feel like this is a major daunting step for new wargamers that first going into a store, hi, I'm so-and-so, watch me not know what I'm doing. That is a major hurdle for many hobbyists. And I think that this will help kind of mitigate the nerves because it provides you an opportunity to test out your kill team and understand the mechanics without actually having to engage with anybody. So that being said, I think Kill Team Co-op is a fantastic tool for introducing new hobbyists into the world of Warhammer 40k. Now, let me just clarify, while Kill Team does take place in the 40k universe, it is not intended to be an intro to the game of 40k. This is not small-scale Warhammer 40k. If you want that, do Combat Patrol. This was emphasized by Games Workshop at the presentation that Kill Team and Warhammer 40k are two very separate game systems. If someone is interested in learning to play Warhammer 40k, then they should start with Combat Patrol, not Kill Team. Combat Patrol is intended to be the small-scale learn-to-play version of Warhammer 40k. However, I find that Kill Team is probably the superior game to introduce completely new wargamers to, just simply due to the low cost of entry. Combat Patrol has larger, more expensive boxes, more models, just a bigger to-do list in order to get started. Whereas with Kill Team, you just have a single small unit of miniatures. Just looking at the two, one is much less overwhelming. So jumping off that, the initial scenarios listed in the core book are very simple. They're very straightforward. One scenario is kill all the enemies, another is burn all the objectives, the last one is just get off the map. Now, for people who are new, this is great. It's not convoluted, it's very easy to digest. And unfortunately, that can seem boring to more experienced players. However, what I've learned from Silver Bayonet is once you get good at something and get an overall feel for the mechanics, start to homebrew your own scenarios. Once you have a feel for how the enemies work and behave, adjust their stats a tiny bit. Again, this is a casual mode made to have fun. So while the initial 3 scenarios may not be of interest to more experienced players, I feel that the homebrew potential is particularly appealing as they give you a foundation for each fighter type that you can then just adjust accordingly depending on how much more experienced your partner gets. I absolutely want to make a Tyrannid monster scenario, especially since my husband intends on playing as the guardsman kill team, and I probably very easily could just by taking the fighter stats from the highest tier of brawler and marksman and then turning up the knob a little bit, maybe throwing in a fun, flavorful ability that is especially like scenario specific, like a Mawlock could be really cool if it like tunneled. Oh my god, the Red Terror. Oh, I have that. Oh my god. See, and this leads me to something else. So, as a primarily painter, that chart with all the different enemies on it just brought me so much joy because I now have an actual use for my one-off projects instead of just having them sitting in my cabinet looking pretty. So I'm much more motivated to go paint a box of fire-themed Hormagaunts, knowing that I can have them on the field swarming towards my husband's guardsmen without having to buy a whole army. So it's a great way to get one-off projects on the field and actually play with them. And playing devil's advocate to that, because I love arguing and thinking of rebuttals to my own comments, which is totally healthy, I'm sure, but a rebuttal to that would be great. Now I've got to buy just these random boxes of miniatures in order to have things to fight. Well, no, that's not actually the case. If you play full-scale 40k, you probably already have those within your army. For example, looking at the orcs, you could have your orc boy as the mid-tier. Hell, you could have Gretchen as just the little swarm troopers, and then obviously knobs as your heavier hitters. So the more diverse an army is, the easier it's going to be, obviously, to pick those miniatures. So the World Eaters might struggle a little bit since they don't really have any what I would consider heavy marksmen within their ranks. But for the most part, it should be easy to pick those within a full-scale army. Now, if you don't have a full-scale army and you don't want to buy a bunch of different miniatures to reflect these different enemy types, do what I do for Silver Bayonet and print off pictures of them and put them on D&D stands. If you are worried about money and you want to budget, you can easily just take a picture, put it on these little cheapo plastic tabs so it's standing upright. You can even put it on the appropriate base size if it matters to you, and play the game. It won't look as cool, but you'll be able to play the game. So the reason I mention all that isn't to just harp on painting. It's how to get people who have different interests than you do into a game you also like. So for example, I know a lot of guys whose significant others, their wives, girlfriends, whatever, like to paint, but prefer not to game. I have this exact relationship with my husband. I am primarily a painter, but I still like to game on occasion, whereas he just does not enjoy gaming. It generally takes a lot of begging from me and giving him this look in order for him to play a game. However, I will say he has been much more inclined to play with me, and it's taken a lot less asking when it involves something that he's painted. So again, going back to Silver Bayonet, he is really good at painting terrain and has been more inclined to play when he's got a really cool project that he's just finished. So translate that into Warhammer. If you have a friend or significant other that just likes to paint and not game, ask them to paint some of the enemy mobs. There's something so incredibly wholesome, just this weird vicarious happiness that you get from that relationship because they're happy to see their stuff on the field, and also they're happy to see that you're happy that their stuff is on the field enhancing your game. And yes, this is 100% anecdotal. Your spouse isn't going to magically fall in love with Warhammer or painting for that matter. But if you have someone who just prefers to paint, this is a great way for the two of you to engage in the same project together, but ultimately enjoy the activities you like most. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Hopefully this wasn't too long-winded. Bottom line is, I really enjoy the new Kill Team co-op mode, and I think it is a great tool to introduce new players to Warhammer or wargaming in general due to its simplicity and the ability to cooperatively work together without having to worry about hindering your partner. It's just a much more stress-free way of learning the rules of Kill Team as well as the individual kill teams themselves. So with that factor and its homebrew and painting potential, I think the new Kill Team provides a lot of exciting opportunities for both hobbyists and gamers alike. So that is my shtick. Thank you very much for listening. Let me know what you think in the comments. I usually don't do these podcast style videos just because I have a really hard time not rambling, as you can probably tell halfway through this video. So thanks again for watching, guys. I'll have more painting related content in the future. And until we meet again, happy painting and gaming.